Well, Fallout 3 is real. But Bethesda, I know. Brotherhood of Steel. I know, but it wasn't nearly as good. Just never thought there could be a proper sequel that is similar in so many ways to Fallout 1 and 2, you shocked bastards. As Fallout 2 is my favorite game of all time, Atom RPG got me hooked like rarely any game out there. I just love these types of games so much, and to replicate my favorite one was such a positive surprise. From a subjective standpoint, there are very few games out there that can hook me like this one. But this is a review, so I need to keep it as objective as possible because Atom is far from perfect. Note that this is 2024 review of the 2018 game. Haven't played the Trudograd expansion, but I will soon. Finished Atom on Expert with almost all quests finished. One was bugged, but most worked nicely. Let's start with story and quests. It's a minimal spoiler review, so won't go into detail. Story is really good with a secretive Atom organization sending you into the wasteland to find a lost general. This starts the chain of events that is gonna take you all over, meeting many interesting characters and solving lots of problems, or maybe create more. Great thing about CRPGs is that decision making is up to the player. Village elections, factory gang, main city official with an interesting past wanting to do a genocide, and many other smaller decisions. What I adore about post-apocalyptic worlds are the weird characters and stories we can affect in a truly significant way. It seems like there is a more of free writing with very little constraints going on in such worlds. One of the stories is particularly heartbreaking that I won't spoil here. Post-apocalyptic worlds have a way of being instantly mysterious and continuing on building on that mystery as the story progresses and worlds get more and more explored. Atom builds on that mystery tremendously, especially when it comes to the main story. Story becomes more and more interesting as it goes on, and more information is uncovered about the people we are searching for. Unfortunately, the ending doesn't deliver, as it leaves the biggest question open. It would be cool if there is a sequel that continues based on the ending decision, because as things stand we don't know the ultimate answer that the whole story has led to. Weird choice, but maybe writers just wanted to see what would be the final decision with all the information available and after experiencing how the world is. World has been tremendously done. Villages, cities, hidden bunkers, cults, and even a circus in all of their rotten humanity, or what's left of it. In supposed civilized places you can find probably the worst of humanity under the guise of progress. Almost nothing, and no one is left without an interesting backstory, which adds significance to quests, and when you add mystery of the world you get as a result constant what is going to happen next part. What makes questing hell of a lot better is that almost every quest can be dealt with in a couple ways, depending on the strengths of our character. Flexing muscles to make enemies submit, convincing them of another solution through speechcraft, using intellect to screw with groups of enemies. I've played a max luck character, and a couple encounters made me laugh my ass off when the option to use luck has been presented and then the conclusion played out. Satellite orbiting the Earth crashed and killed every enemy and made the whole encounter play out without firing a bullet. Otherwise, it would have been a difficult fight. Dialogue is well written and the decision-making system is really good. I was genuinely interested in what would other solutions be if other checks would have been successful. Here is a tip so you don't get overwhelmed talking to every single NPC, as it can get too tiring. Every dialogue has fixed questions that start with "let's chat" or "can I ask a few questions" and so on. That results in the next series of questions that are always "what's your name, how do you like living here, heard of any rumors, etc." Finding out new information leads to a small amount of experience points as a reward, but these questions don't have anything to do with quests in almost every case. Quest-related questions are unique dialogue options outside of "let's chat" and the sub-questions that follow. So if you don't want to read too much text, stick to topics outside of "let's chat" and the fixed sub-questions. Respect, though, for giving so many NPCs personality, which makes the world feel more alive and immersive. Which leads me to companions. From what I've read and experienced, it seems there are 4 permanent companions: Alexander, Fidel, Hexogen, and the dog. 3 humans are so damn different to one another that it is a joy to see their take on important topics through dialogue. Hexogen is weird as heck, while Alexander is a funny lying bastard. All 3 are very unique and I love it. They might not be permanent because some of the decisions might alienate some of them, which can lead to a fight. They are capable in fight, but AI is not very good. Thankfully, there are options to make them aggressive, defensive, cautious, hold position, attack certain enemies, and to modify tactics. You're gonna have to do it a lot and change tactics depending on the fight, which offsets a lot of the issues that AI has. World of Atom, next to great storytelling, has a ton of secrets. I especially liked how mysterious the Dead City is, with stalker and looter groups fighting monsters underground, while the above ground is overly radiated, so only the ones with protection can explore. Mysterious crater full of shadow monsters that has its own story to tell. Atom doesn't miss a bit when it comes to leaving things for the player to figure out, as almost all answers are in notes, books and dialogue, except for the ending as mentioned earlier and couple encounters. For example, there is a worm that controls people from the inside, while on the outside it is difficult to notice the difference. A particular encounter with three stooges having a standoff accusing each other that they have been affected by the worm. They give you the backstory and then it's up to you to decide. In the end, you don't really get the answer and instead game leaves it to the player to pontificate who could have had the worm. Then the talks of a serum that can make you forget everything, which is the only way to respect the character, and there is only one in game. World, story, companions, secrets, mysteries, ridiculousness, humor and the writing in general are all fantastic. Lots of quality effort to put in. Atmosphere throughout the game is amazing as well due to how the world has been done. Ambient music is the same style as the original Fallouts and it works wonders for the atmosphere. Not only the music, but the mysterious world with progressively more dangerous locations and encounters give a fantastic feeling of dread. There are also a lot of opportunities to utilize out-of-combat skills such as pickpocket, barter, survival, tinker technology, and most of it is worth the investment as it can help tremendously. High pickpocket with the will to save scum a lot is gonna make you rich quickly. Barter can lower every vendor price. Survival is a giant help on the world map, especially at the beginning when most encounters are simply too dangerous without the proper equipment. Atom allows lots of freedom to operate. For example, you can smoke characters to death so that they don't aggro rest of the neutrals in order to get an item you want. I love when games allow creative solutions. Stealth is done in an interesting way, it's automatically applied, so when someone spots you, combat starts, but you can move in closer and closer with higher stealth stat. Not engaging stealth, but it works I guess. Helps with pickpocketing too. Companion skills are weirdly implemented. Developers have dumbed it down as much as possible, which leaves the player to pass almost all the checks on their own. Basically, companion skills don't work and are completely pointless unless points are put into the combat ones. Maybe stealth works too, but I haven't tested it properly. Missed opportunity as it reduces companions for combat effectiveness only. Now we come to combat and gameplay. Fallout 1 and 2 had one glaring weakness, which was combat. It was too basic, and unfortunately Atom hasn't done much to improve it. Wasteland 3 does it much better, but Atom stayed true to the originals and it plays pretty much the same way. Encounter starts and then everyone does its own thing, which is shoot or strike and use stimulants to heal, that's it. Ranged attacks are pretty much mandatory from what I've seen on expert and survival modes, as it gives the option to damage enemies as soon as possible and that helps tremendously. Interesting thing is that there are a couple shields that help for melee characters, but rarely anything helps against being bursted down. Expect lots and lots of quick saves and quick loads. I mean a ridiculous amount. While Atom, same as Fallout, tries to mimic to an extent real consequences of getting shot, but that rarely translates well to games. I get it, it's not easy to make combat not annoying and yet tactical enough, and maintain a modicum of realism with all the usual chaos that the open conflict brings. One of the problems in my opinion is very high enemy combat related stats on expert and survival mode, which makes it easy for them to hit almost all the time, and there is very little we can do but reduce damage through armor and heal afterwards. Not saying combat is bad or anything like that, because it has a certain appeal to it, which is connected more to the power progression. It becomes extremely satisfying when eventually the player starts to acquire better gear and can rival the enemies better. Cover mechanic would solve a lot of the combat issues and make it far more tactical in a good way without kills coming too fast. I love the fact there are random encounters on the world map and love the chance to score more loot and to fight. But then annoyance quickly comes in when in some encounters enemy positioning is right in your face. And if they get the first turn, you're dead. Quick load. Would love to hear from someone that played Atom but never played original Fallouts what they think of the combat. I have that nostalgia that clouds the judgment, but even with that, I can safely say that there isn't much to combat in Atom. What they have done well are the weapons. It's very satisfying hearing burst sounds tearing through enemies or heavy single shots with louder sound effects. That never gets old. Post-apocalyptic armor looks really good too, and it's pleasing to shoot Mad Max meets the army looking bastards. Important tactic is to buff before big fights with rare stimulant drugs that can give additional strength, action points, endurance and damage resistance. On expert and survival these are mandatory for some of the fights because Atom is quite challenging. Very satisfying as well when it comes to finally succeeding. Another thing that bothers me about combat is that kill satisfaction is much lower than in original Fallouts. It is one of the most underrated aspects in games that isn't talked about enough. If you've played original Fallouts, then you know how great kill satisfaction was there. One of the reasons is the same as in Atom, which is the difficulty factor. Another reason that Atom doesn't have are death animations. In Fallout you had people running on fire upon being hit with flamethrower, torso systematically blown apart piece by piece when burst firing hits critically, disintegration with energy weapons, or creating a giant hole on the side of the torso upon scoring a critical hit with a single shot. Atom, from what I've seen, only has had blown off animation that is out of the ordinary. Disappointing, considering how great character models look. I love sprites in Atom. Simple animations like running are really good and quite immersive. Melee animations are alright, nothing special, but ranged attacks have quite good animations accompanied by great sound effects, which makes combat better overall. Too bad we don't have energy weapons, miniguns and flamethrowers, but without special kill animations they wouldn't be as cool anyway. Maybe Shudograd expansion has some of it. However, weapons that are present are very well done in my opinion. It's a big dynamic change acquiring a new weapon and then testing it for the first time. Ammo economy is very important in such a world where everything is scarce. Can't just burst everything down, but have to switch to melee weapons occasionally. No point in using 6 bullet bursts with rare ammo on a rat. Also can't have companions using weapons with the same bullets, as that would lead to overconsumption. So there are tactical layers in weapon choice. I've had to switch lots of time in order to preserve ammo for later fights. Especially considering how badly balanced some of the fights are. I get that monsters and humans cannot be balanced the same, but some fights are insanely difficult. Like the fight before the final fight. Oh man, if I didn't have a bunch of dynamite with a timer to lay down as a trap, I don't think I could have finished it. Had to use everything and reload many times to make it perfect. Then in the Dead City shadow enemies and their weirdly balanced attacks. If standing right next to them, they attack with hands and basically do no damage. If standing 2 squares away, then they use a bite attack that has something like 90% critical hit rate and can do over 20 damage per hit even with the best armor. Very strange. Too many critical hits from enemies in general, which leads to too much quick loading. Enemy variety is okay, but could have been better. Fighting humans is never dull, but could have added few more monsters and such. Couple cool monsters and that is it. Then again, original Fallouts didn't have some crazy monster amount, but there were cool races like ghouls and mutants. Overall, combat could have been much better. For nostalgic players, it's going to be fine for the most part, but new players that don't have the nostalgia factor working in the game's favor are not gonna be impressed by almost anything outside of sound effects, weapon design, and maybe character models. Important gameplay mechanics are looting, bartering, and inventory management. It's alright overall, but can get quite annoying. All the vendors outside of 2 most important ones in the main city that sell weapons and armor have limited amounts of money to exchange for goods, while those 2 arseholes offer such small amounts for everything that it isn't worth selling. So the player ends up going to every other vendor to get some money that can afterwards be exchanged for ammo, weapons, and armor at those arseholes. I get why such a system exists. There is so much loot because every fresh corpse can be stripped to bare bones, and I'm all for it. that selling all the stuff at those vendors would lead to players snowballing too quickly by easily acquiring best scaled gear for the level. I am okay with this because power progression is an important factor in a game with bare bones combat. Every step forward is hard but very satisfying. By enabling too quick power progression it would ruin the game a bit. Lots of important services in Atom cost a lot of money, between 3 and 10,000 rubles, just to be transferred to Mountain of Woes and the Dead City, which also stops the player from snowballing. Basically the game kills you with tedium if you stop progressing and start accumulating money because of back and forth between vendors. Option is there, but it isn't for everyone. Inventory could have been designed much better too, with item icons more prominently highlighted and differentiated. Sometimes it is hard to recognize the thing that you really need. Carry weight could have been also hard to alleviate the nuisance, but it depends on strength anyway, so it's up to the player if they want to start with such an advantage in carry weight or not. I get it, it's a bit of a survival game too, which makes sense in such a world. Character leveling progression is great with many useful skills available as mentioned earlier. Instead of tags and perks from the original, developers have added a skill tree that has very slow advancement. Player needs to have an idea what to focus on from the start because they won't get many upgrades. I've barely completed one skill tree path as a level 18 or something like that, and that was it. Very strict leveling system with only one respec available. I like it though, maybe a couple more respecs would have been better because the game doesn't explain skills well enough and there are definitely better attributes and skills than others, but upon realizing what works better and what doesn't, one late respec can sort out all of that. One respec also increases replay value and Atom has plenty of that already with all the quest decisions. Couple more things to mention before the final verdict. Quest journal is terrible. Very little information and often it is easy to forget who was the damn quest giver and where they could be found. They should have expanded quest descriptions. Presentation is so-so. Played PlayStation 4 version and world map looks terrible. Very few details. Disappointing. Lots of locations look bland too. Maybe on PC it all looks much better, but PlayStation 4 version is meh in that department. Character models, on the other hand, look fantastic, as said earlier. Audio work is great mostly, ambient music and weapon sound effects especially. I'd love to see exact info on skill checks, to see how much exactly is needed to pass them. It's very important stuff that has been omitted on purpose in a game with only one respec and with many skill checks disappearing after the first check fail. Also some bugs persist even 4 years after. Time for the final verdict. I'll try to be as objective as possible here, but levels of enjoyment of Atom RPG largely comes down to if you're a fan of original Fallouts. If you are, it is a no-brainer. I can almost guarantee permanent excitement from start to finish due to great writing, atmosphere decisions, rewarding exploration, satisfying power progression and familiar combat, as many annoyances won't drag it down too much. For new players it's not gonna be as great most likely, but still I believe that lots of great things that the game does would be appreciated. For me it is an 8 out of 10 game which translates to a great one. I can see people giving it 6, 7, 9, but anything lower or higher would be unrealistic in my opinion. Anyway, that's all. Check out Patreon and subscribe star links in the description for reaction videos if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching and see you soon.